Hey there everyone, it's been a month since the last video and a lot of progress has been made to the point where I actually released a very early alpha or pre-alpha build on the Launchbox forum April 2nd to about 13 people. So I just want to give thanks to several of the folks out there, Neil 9000, Wallmachine, Retro 808, Faeran, and of course Rincewind, for using the editor, giving me lots of feedback and some enhancement requests that I will cover in this particular video. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so just some little things here. It will actually jump to the first view available in this list when you load up a theme. Let's see if I can, what I'll do here, I'll remove all the configuration for this particular view, Coverflow Games. See, there's it's not solid, so there's nothing. So what I'll do, I'll exit, relaunch.
No messages from today. For earlier ones, go to the Alexa app.
And as you can see, it jumped to the first available view with configuration. All right, so it's just a subtle enhancement there. Some of the big ones are the ability now to create a new theme, duplicate an existing one, delete an existing one, and then rename an existing theme. So we can go ahead and duplicate Faeran Illuminate, and I'll call it Elum 2. So it's duplicated the theme, it's positioned to that theme. I can go in and rename, whoops, hello. I can go in and rename and Lordy, Illuminate 2, for example. Okay, so I've renamed the theme. And then obviously I can do whatever I want with this duplicated theme. That was a big one. That was on my list from the very beginning, but it's very difficult to rename folders when images are in use, as you can see. But I figured out how to stop locking image files, so you can do renames. Anyway, that was a biggie. And I covered this in a previous video where you could open your media in File Explorer, and you can add all your subfolders and add all your images, and then while you're in your editor you can basically point to these subfolders, and that's where it will grab the respective images from. For example, this subfolder would be used for the ESRB UI element. But what I've done, I've allowed the ability to open up File Explorer and go to your theme that you're currently editing, and you can deploy your custom platform clear logos and banners and whatnot, and you can put them here, and then when you publish it will copy all this content forward as well. That way it's all in one place at design time, and as you'll see when I go into the editor with these platform clear logos, you can actually reference them in your editor. Meaning that if you define a platform clear logo in your editor for your particular view, it will pick them up from this subfolder. And if the platform clear logo doesn't exist here, it will pull it from the default location, which is in Launchbox. Okay. And again, fan art, device, banner, basically all the overrides. Okay, so that's basically the main screen. So let's go into the editor. And as you can see right off the bat, the UI element and properties pane has had an overhaul. This was an enhancement request that was requested by Faeran, something that was absolutely needed. Wasn't necessarily on my radar. It was something I was thinking about. Obviously, using graphics package on my Mac, it has a similar kind of look and feel where you can group objects and whatnot. But let's talk about this real quick. So organization of UI elements. We have two groups here. You can open them up, and as you can see, this group here has a whole host of UI elements. And just to make things straight, in comparison with the previous version, it's still in Z order. Okay, so from bottom up, fan art is in the background, and then to the very top here for game selection text, that would be foreground. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's in a different group, it's still in this order. That is way in the distance or in the far background, and this is your top level UI element. All right, but the arrows are gone up and down through the Z order list. It's now controlled via drag and drop. Okay, so for example, if I take the bokeh UI element and place it here, and I've flipped it, in this case I don't have any fan art, so this is a terrible example. So I'll tell you what, let me come out of here. Let's pick something that does have fan art. This one has fan art, so let's go in. Let's try this again. So Z order, I've moved bokeh underneath the fan art, so obviously you'll never see the bokeh effect now because it's obscured by the fan art image. Okay, so I can just simply move stuff around as you can see. Yeah, okay, so that's how you do that, move up and down. If you wanted to move a UI element to another group, yeah, you can drag it into the group. Okay, or you can just simply say right click, move to wheel, and as you can see, it's just moved it all the way up there. Probably want an option to move it to the bottom of the group. I don't have that right now. I could have reorganized the groups and then moved it, but anywho. But that's how you can move a UI element back and forth, move it to wheel, move it back to miscellaneous. And you can actually reorder the groups as well. So I've just flipped them. The wheel is now underneath the fan art, which again doesn't make any sense, but just to prove a point, you can move stuff around. You can name the groups anything you want. So I could say wheel and stuff. This user source 2, which you really can't see, I've got the analog clock user source here. I could make this more meaningful, so instead of user source I can say analog clock. Game selection text, as you can see I've already changed the name on that one. Genre, platform name. Now this user source, oh, hello. That is animate box art. And this is another user source. This is for the analog clock, my bad. Okay, so yeah, you can change the names or retag UI elements to make them more to make it more obvious to the designer what these elements are. Some are obvious, but when you have multiple frames, you don't know what they are, so you want to name them accordingly. So I could say notes frame, for example. I think that was it. It was basically just restyling the bottom half to really match the top half, but the organization was very much needed. Let's see. Actually, while I'm in here, let's pick one of these UI elements. This should be title. Yep. I did actually add a new property called appearance, and it's either selected or active. So what that means is, with your wheel selection, if you're pressing and holding on the joypad or the keyboard, the cursor keys, and you're spinning through a selection, while it's spinning through, if you have it set to selected, for every game or platform that it's skipping over in the selection, it will update that UI element there and then. But if it's if you set it to active, it's only when your selection has come to rest, i.e. you've taken your finger off the left and right cursor keys or left and right on the joypad, you've let it go and you've settled on a selected item, then it will update. Okay. Some folks wanted the ability to use selective versus active, so I've enabled that. Let's see, as one of the things that you can see here is the game search criteria. Usually, you know, it's in conjunction with the wheel, so you know, with a horizontal wheel such as this, you would just push up, and then the search index comes up and position accordingly. It was requested I make this a separate UI element, so you can move it and size it any way you want, and that's exactly what I've done. Let's see, for video, I've added a property on here for aspect ratio. I've currently got it set to stretch, but you can say keep. Okay, so you can resize it any way you want, but it will always retain its aspect ratio. Okay. Again, that was another user request. Let's see. Let's go to colors. And again, another request was the ability to use hex color codes and alpha values. So, for example, if I specify 50% alpha, it's 50% transparent. And the same is true with the gradient picker or gradient creator. I've modified this heavily, made it a little bit nicer to look at, but you know, there's more functionality in here now. So obviously, when you click on a gradient point, it will highlight the one that you're currently working on, and also added the hex and alpha values to these as well, so it gives you greater flexibility over the color range that you can utilize. Let's see, and then with genre, play mode, and region text UI elements. So this is one here. This is genre. Let's see, number of entries 4. Let's see if I can find one with multiple. I think, let's see, I'm in PlayStation 2. I think SSX3 was a good, yeah, that's a perfect example. Okay, so we have 4 entries. And one of the requests here was to, instead of me utilizing a hard-coded comma space as a delimiter, it was asked of me to make it user-definable. So if you wanted to have like a pipe in between each of the items, then you can. And that's exactly what I've allowed for. Or you can have just comma, no space. It's entirely up to you. All right. Let's see. And then there was just one other thing. So as I'm moving UI elements around on the screen, first of all, I've improved the performance of the movement and sizing of objects. It's probably not that noticeable, but it's especially on this PC. I'm running with the 2080 Ti, so but it is faster. But if you notice, as I move UI elements around, the panel fades in, fades out, so it's so it doesn't get in your way as you're moving stuff and resizing stuff on the screen. All right. And then this UI element that I've added, platform clear logo, as you can see, this is picking up my custom, this is picking up my custom platform clear logo that I briefly showed you when I opened up the big box media for this particular theme. And that's where I placed these graphics. So at design time, at least you can actually get to see what they look like. And then obviously when you publish, it will take these graphics that you've deployed in the subfolder and bundle them with your finalized theme. All right, but at least you can actually get to see them here and work with them. So yeah, that's platform clear logo. I think that was it. I mean, there was a ton of stuff that was done. Let's see. Oh, I tell a lie. There was some other stuff on here, like maybe this is a terrible example. If I go to NES, there might be some games I have that I don't have any box artwork for. 32 in 1. Ah, okay. This is a good example. So I don't have box art for this particular game. Okay. So the UI element is there. I just don't have any image file on my hard drive, so it will just be an empty space. So it was asked of me to have a fallback value for this. Let me see. I don't have no image available ping out there, but just to give you an idea, let's pick something. This is Atari, right? So how about I do that? So that's the fallback value if it can't find any box art. So that will show up. Obviously that's not what you want to do. You probably want to have an image that is a nice Atari box, in this case an Atari box, and then you can say no cover available, that kind of thing. Make it more presentable. But it's just to prove a point that if I were to save this view, for example, and click this game, it has box art. This one does not have box art. obviously this one has box art. So there you go, you have fallback for box art. And there is one for release date. There is a fallback value for this one. And that's what I put here. Unknown release date is the default. So if for whatever reason this value is empty, as it came across from, as it's populated in the metadata in Launchbox, if it's blank, null, empty, whatever, then this value will display instead. Again, that was another request, and it makes perfect sense. You don't want to necessarily show an empty space. You want it filled with something. So sure, you could do that, or you could, whatever your date format was. What was it? Month, year. So, you could something like that. I mean, if you want to do that, but it's entirely up to you. Unknown release date was what it was. So yeah, I mean that's the changes that have been made. Now these are basically the new additions to the theme, but a horrendous amount of bug fixes have gone into this as well. As you can imagine, I've got a couple of people in different countries that are using this, playing around with it, and right off the bat I had issues with date formatting, just because of Windows configured differently in different countries, so that tripped my program. Anyway, most of those things have all been rectified now, so it's really just enhancing this and fixing any issue as and when they come up. But yeah, to my knowledge, there's 2 people that are building some themes right now, and both very impressive. So yeah, I mean it's fantastic. It's really great to see. But what I'll do, I'll go ahead and publish what I have here, because there's a couple of things that I want to show. You can see that I've got this animate box art XAML user source. I haven't added storyboarding in yet, but I can get around it by plugging in a piece of XAML code. Actually, what I'll do, I'll open it up and I'll show you briefly what's contained in it. This is everything that's in the user source. There's not much. It's really just moving the box from off screen to on screen within this particular time frame. That's it. That's all it does, and it will do that every time the game is updated. So didn't change anything. Let's run big box. And I just realized that I generated the code for Illuminate 2, so let's go into Illuminate 2. Alright, so we're in PlayStation, and as you can see, as I'm selecting the game via the wheel and it's at rest, the box art is scrolling in from the left and locking into position. And I've got certain UI elements like notes at the bottom of the screen, the title at the top of the screen, and then we have the ESRB, genre, play mode, and then the region down at the bottom right there, they're all updating as I'm spinning through the selection. Oh, and of course the box art. All these UI elements are being updated as I'm spinning through the wheel. So that's the difference between active versus selected. As you can see, the video has not been updated, and it will not change until I release my finger from the cursor key. Okay, once I release, that's the difference between selected versus active. Okay, so it's basically once I've stopped scrolling through the selection and I've come to rest, that's what it considers active, and that's where it will then go ahead and start updating certain UI elements that have been tagged as active. Selective, it's making the updates, you know, as and when the wheel is being updated, depending on how much stuff you've got going on that have been configured to use selected. It could actually slow your view down. So, you know, a lot of folks out there tend to utilize active versus selected, but some people want the ability to have selected. It all depends on what they're doing with the view, but I just wanted to, you know, let you know the difference there. Yeah. So like I said, don't have storyboarding in yet. This was a very crude and rudimentary method of showing how animation can be added to this code generator. It was really a proof of concept. A friend of mine, Rincewind, has actually done a far better job of animating one of his UI elements, and I wish I could show you his theme, but it's not my theme to show. So, you know, when he's good and ready, I would certainly love to show it off for sure, because it looks absolutely fantastic. The thing that springs to mind is LucasArts' Day of the Tentacle. It's got that kind of look to it, or I think it does. I think it looks great. Anyway, that's pretty much where we're at with the editor. It's being used. Like I said, a couple of folks are trying it out. They're having a crack at building some themes with it. I still have an enhancement list to go through, and I've still got a series of fixes to go through, and then obviously I've got to add storyboarding. But I have added so many enhancements to this that I'm going to have to do a round of performance tuning and code cleanup before I start getting back into adding additional enhancements. I just want to clean up some of the code a little bit and make some of the code run more efficiently before I start throwing more bloat in there. But yeah, I mean, that's where we are, and I just want to give you an update just so that you can see where this stands and what it's up to. All right, so maybe 2-3 weeks time I'll share another video. Thanks a lot.